In the east of London, more and more immigrants are encountering less and less living space. But how much immigration can a country handle here? In London's East End, where the Thames forms an S-loop around the Isle of Dogs, a slight movement of the head is enough to shift one's gaze between two tenets of British politics. Two types of liberalization meet here like in a global press. The consequences of a quarter of a century of economic liberalism and the consequences of easier immigration. In the north of the district are the spectacular skyscrapers of Canary Wharf, London's new futuristic financial centre. They are home to the capital managers and financial services firms that Britain has attracted because of its regulatory freedoms. The high-tech high-rises are now dwarfing the former architectural giants of the East End. In the post-war period, social housing estates with huge residential towers were built there to provide accommodation for working-class families. And today, a quarter of all council housing in tower hamlets is hopelessly overcrowded. A generous immigration policy ensured that around 250,000 net immigrants immigrated in the UK each year in the decade before the Brexit referendum. Sufficient new living space has not been created in the same period, and we know that the numbers were rising after Brexit a lot. In Tower Hamlets, there's often only a construction fence between the shocking poverty and glittering wealth. In this respect, too, the district is a mini image of Great Britain. The great wave of turbo-globalization of the past 30 years, which the former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair pushed forward, as well as the subsequent Tory governments, does not have all boats as hoped lifted straight away. However, house prices do not care about the income gap in the country. They have shot up everywhere. Last March, a fire broke out in a two-room apartment in Tower Hamlets that was occupied by 18 students and bike couriers from Bangladesh, according to the Guardian newspaper, and one of the residents died. In a later court case, the ex-tenant said they had paid £90 a week for one of the places in the double bunk beds pushed together. The landlord couple must have received income of around €8,000 per month from the property. In pounds, of course. It's a question many Brits are asking themselves, and it's a very fundamental one in politics in this upcoming election year. How much more immigration can a country cope with in a short period of time, just from a very practical perspective? Brexit, which was primarily a revolt against cosmopolitanism and for more national control, has not changed the influx to the island. On the contrary, 2 or 3 times as many immigrants are now coming to Great Britain each year as in the 4 years before the Brexit vote. The majority of them from outside the EU, especially from India, Nigeria, China and Pakistan. Between January and December 22, Great Britain recorded more immigration than ever before in its history. A net 745,000 people moved to the United Kingdom within the year, after deducting those who moved away. And mind you, we're mostly talking about legal visa immigration, not about those people who come across the English Channel in rubber dinghies or hidden in trucks. 52,530 of them were discovered in the same period. All the efforts of the Conservative Tory government, or the promises to deter asylum seekers by flying them out to Rwanda immediately after their arrival, distract from the fact that the enormous immigration numbers are also due to political decisions by the Tories. Because many companies and the healthcare system needed new workers after Brexit. The government of ex-Tory Prime Minister Boris Johnson relaxed the visa conditions for people who were supposed to work in hospitals or nursing homes, among other things. Companies can report staff shortages so that visas can be issued for the relevant sectors. Until recently, students only had to apply for a master's degree program in order to receive visas for themselves and their relatives. Almost 500,000 people came to Great Britain via this route alone in 2022. All of these immigrants have to gain a foothold in the country where, according to expert estimates, 340,000 new apartments would have to be built every year to meet demand. The only problem is, the more that is built there, the more difficult it will be to create more living space due to the increasing lack of space. Tower Hamlets has always been an immigrant area. There were the docks and warehouses of the trading power of Britain, and there was work. But the district has never experienced such a rapid densification. In just 10 years, between 2011 and 2021, the district's population grew by more than 22%, according to an official census. Around 16,000 people live there per square kilometer, which is 4 times as many as the Berlin average. And there are around 20,000 residents on a waiting list for larger municipal housing. According to a finding by the National Statistics Agency, Muslim households are particularly affected by overcrowding. The probability that they are overcrowded is 5 times higher than the average value. A parliamentary report on the consequences of overcrowding states that one of the main problems was that mold was spreading in apartments due to the high condensation of humidity. And it's no wonder that certain job openings would often be taken by immigrants from Africa or Asia, given poor wages and terrible working conditions. In order for such jobs to become more attractive for Brits, they simply have to be paid better. That must be possible in a country with such wealth. With a look of bewilderment by British standards, people there even quote London Mayor Sadiq Khan's slogan, "Diversity is our strength." When people hear that, they say they think of Orwellian mental manipulation. And some of these changes are obvious. The vast majority of women seen on the streets of the Isle of Dogs wear headscarves or face veils. Palestinian flags fly from the lampposts of many shopping streets. And in a survey about their ethnicity in 2021, of the district's 300,000 residents, almost 45% described them as Asian or Asian British, and almost 40% as white. The largest immigrant group comes from Bangladesh. Their representatives also make up the majority of politicians in the district government. The mayor of Tower Hamlets is Lutfur Rahman, a former Labour politician who was banned from political activity for 5 years by a court after being convicted of election fraud in 2015. Rahman then ran again with his own party called Aspire and won. One would have liked to have spoken to local politicians from Aspire about the situation when journalists arrived there, but inquiries to half a dozen of their district deputies received no response. And according to their program, Aspire aims to build 1,000 new homes in Tower Hamlet every year. Even if that were to work, it would firstly hardly reduce demand and secondly entail social costs. Mike Turrell, for example, was the boss of Tower Hamlets Community Housing, that's a large social housing association, until his retirement a few years ago. During this time, he primarily tried to densify the district horizontally, that means to close vacant lots. He used every square centimeter, and such gaps no longer exist today. That's why old social buildings are now to be demolished and replaced by new, significantly taller ones. And they say themselves they are creating the slums of the future. The new apartments will be more modern and even slightly larger than the old ones. But why is he still so pessimistic? Because in this way, you are accommodating more and more people without ensuring social management. And this densification causes stress in many ways. To make his point clear, Tyrell showed some reporters the council estate on the Isle of Dogs where he himself grew up in the 70s. It's a 4-story block of houses with open balcony-like entrances to the apartment doors around there's a large lawn around the house, and the construction method is called streets in the sky. The idea was to continue the function of sidewalk upwards so that neighbors could meet there just as they would on the street. It was a clever design. It made real neighborhood possible, according to the neighbors that still live there. And they say for them, as a child, it was a paradise. It was like being in a village. And all of this would not only be lost if as many people as possible were accommodated in anonymous towers. A lack of meeting and escape space will also lead to increasing conflicts through children's noise, for example, or a lack of play and sports opportunities. And when helicopters roar through the sky above the settlement where the people live, then it's kind of the two worlds what you see there. And the people there sometimes feel like they are in a dystopian science fiction film. Every now and then you can see garbage flying out on the streets from the 10th floor, or people are followed on the sidewalk with laser pointers. And everyone closes the door behind them, turns on the television, and the young people immerse themselves in social media or online games on their cell phones, or the mobile phones, for my British viewers. And people avoid mentioning that even something terrible happened because a 14-year-old jumped down from up there onto the square, and it was from a 60-meter high residential tower. And of course, in living conditions like this, you have to take even more care of mental health. And in another video a few days ago, I talked about a lot of people that were not able to work anymore because of mental illnesses. But here in my constituency, we have absolutely learned from past mistakes that were made by building bigger blocks for social housing that were social housing only. And we are not repeating that anymore. But that's exactly what is planned in Tower Hamlets now. And I can only say that means not learning from history. But if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.